Okay, everybody. Good morning. Chris back on Vertical Without Bedsores. This is, what is it? November 9th, 2025. And it's the first snow of the season that's stuck on the road. Um, I wanted to take you for a little ride. We went to that meet, and I want to show you some of these little gems of communities that were once, again, prosperous during the mining uh, period when the mines were still here in Copper Island. Now, there are still businesses around here, and you wonder now why were all these little towns all over the place, and then they become desolate. And I said there were towns up here that had 5,000 people, and now they had six. Well, I meant to say 600. And the case in point would be Calumet, Michigan. They once had 5,000 people, and now they have six. But so a guy wonders why all these little small towns? Well, I never realized that they had every few miles they had a town with a hardware store and a grocery store. Well, it makes sense. The average speed of a horse at a comfortable trot for the passengers and for the horse in a carriage is 6 miles an hour. Now, 6 miles an hour. So, Calumet, Michigan is 15 miles from Houghton, Michigan. And that would be a 2.5-hour ride if you wanted to go to Houghton. Well, now, at 50 miles an hour, what is it? It's a 20-minute ride, 55 miles an hour. So, but in the old days, before cars and the internal combustion engine, which started in the teens, became common. Who wants to drive 2.5 hours on a horse to go and buy groceries? And that's why you had all these businesses spring up. And unfortunately, with the introduction of the automobile, people would rather go to a bigger place with more shopping options and competition, which naturally gives you a better price. And now, for example, you go someplace and you only have one store, and the next store is 2.5 hours away. The guy's going to be smart enough, if he's smart enough to have a store, he's also smart enough to think, hey, I got this guy, I got a captive customer, and he's going to be, it's not worth driving 2.5 hours on a horse and buggy to save a few bucks. Well, then it became practical when you had cars, right? When Henry Ford, thank God for Henry Ford, you can say what you want about him. But we owe a lot to a guy like Henry Ford. He did a lot in spite of all his prejudices and his idiosyncrasies. He did a lot of great things for this country by improving manufacturing and World War II. Ford Motor Company was produced so much material for the war effort. They got to the point that Willow Run, they were bringing out one bomber a day. They were making one bomber a day, and they had some places they were making one truck an hour. I mean, ridiculous efficiency. So, as I say, controversial figure, but he was one of the reasons one of the major reasons we ended up winning World War II, and we're not speaking German or Japanese today. Great patriot. Now, here's one of these places I'm talking about. This was a general store in the middle of nowhere, right? One of these places that, let me see if I can get a better shot at this. In the middle of nowhere, but conveniently located. And you wonder now, why are these stores, whether they're abandoned now or they're used for storage? Why? Well, they're no longer, they cannot be competitive, right? They can't compete with Walmart. Here's another grocery store. So, well, here's another grocery store. What do you actually have? Well, you have abandoned towns going to rot that can no longer serve as grocery stores or whatever. But they can't serve as houses. See, one of the good things around here is supply and demand. There are more structures than there are people. When you got an area, Copper Island had within walking distance 125,000 people within walking distance of Calumet. And when the mines closed, there weren't any jobs, so everybody went back to, a lot of people left and went to Detroit, Ford Motor Company. And so you have all these little pockets of small towns. And so as the population expands and more people want these places, things really start to look up. And believe me, when I started coming here maybe 15 years ago, it was pretty depressing. Calumet, I don't know, sometimes you'd be in areas where there was 80%, 70% vacancy. And what I've seen in the last 15 years in Calumet is amazing. The growth and the improvements, the regentrification, the modernization. You know, the other thing too is I get mixed up because I'm an old guy. When I said the government doesn't want you to have your own property, there are communist elements, socialistic elements in this country that don't want the individual, the entrepreneur, the rugged individualist, the capitalist to get rich. That's very true. It sounds nuts, but it's very, very true. We just to reiterate, we talked about the real estate being the common denominator of wealth. And, just to interrupt for a moment, this to me is one of the prettiest areas on Copper Island. There are so many of them, but it's a valley. And it looks like something out of that, these movies about how green is my valley, these areas in Wales. And here, the other thing we talked about, vehicles. All kinds of unique vehicles. There's a Hummer and an Army trailer. Almost got hit here. And there's so much amazing equipment. But, there's just not enough people, thank God, to occupy the existing standing structures. And a lot of opportunities. And, I talked about the government wants people to spend $1,600 a year on rent. No, I meant to say at least $1,600 a month. People paying $1,600, $2,000, $2,500 a month for rent, and you can get mortgages for substantially less than that. And we've got to counteract. We've got to counteract this. It's fashionable to be unpatriotic. We've got to get back to the basics. Faith, religion, Christianity. Yes, this country is primarily a Christian nation. Capitalism, freedom, the Constitution. We got to get back to the basics. That's what made this country great, and that's what's going to keep this country great. I studied World War II a lot, and one of the reasons, there are many, many reasons why the U.S. won, but it was material. We could just outproduce everybody in the world in everything. The manufacturing base in the United States won World War II, along with, ingenuity and great dedicated soldiers willingly giving up their lives for freedom. But one of the big reasons during World War II, the Americans were good mechanics. They always say the hillbilly is the greatest fighter in the United States military. And they die 3 and 4 times disproportionately to their numbers. Well, hillbillies like to fight. And the other thing is, you drive around here and you see people out here working on their vehicles. I used to always say about, you could always tell a hillbilly's yard because the engine was hanging from a tree. And that was true, during the Depression, and a lot of times. They knew how to work on stuff. And, no was not in their vocabulary. And one of the reasons, American soldiers could go out in a war zone and take 5 or 6 blown up tanks, part them, hang the engines and the transmissions and God knows what else from trees, and they could take 6 blown up tanks and make 2 or 3 operable again. It wasn't only tanks, it was just about everything. So the ingenuity and determination of the American soldier could beat any enemy. And, we can't lose that spirit. I mean, with computers now, my daughter bought that new Cadillac. I don't know how much it was, 80 grand. And she had it for a couple months. And all of a sudden they wanted $500 for a computer update. And she got the extended warranty, and the guy, he gave it to her for free as part of the warranty. But the service manager admitted that there aren't any good news. No new cars are any good compared to what they were. That computers have wrecked cars. And I listen to these mechanical guys, these engineers on YouTube, and when they ask what new would you buy an $80,000, $100,000 new Ford pickup, Chevy, Chrysler, they say no. What do they say? They go back and mention some exceptional vehicle from the late 90s or 2000s. One of the ones they often mention is a thing called a Lexus. Now here's these unique things we're talking about here. I mean, look at these vehicles here. Half car, half truck. You know, it was not uncommon for a guy to take a Ford pickup truck and make a tractor out of it. They disconnect the common brakes, and then they'd have it so one brake controlled the right side, the right wheel, the other, the left side, just like tractors. And very ingenious. So anyway, I just wanted to show you all the neat stuff here on Copper Island. I'm running over time again. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Crazy Chris from Vertical Without Bedsores.